Welcome to the QuickBooks for Mac Professionals online meetup with Shelley Robbins and Victoria Cameron. I'm sorry, Victoria, it looks like I cut off your last name there. Well, that's not really fair. Let's take you over so we can take a look at what you look like. And thank you for everybody who's come on. I know it's such a busy time of year. We've got so much going on. But we want to have finish the What's New that we started last month, where we dove into some of the new features in QuickBooks for Mac. And if you weren't able to attend that, it is up on my YouTube channel, so you can see it there. And this is sort of the highlights from that there was 4 preference changes in the 2013. So we had changes to backup, we had attachments, which is new, a new little feature in reporting, and then the IPN, which wasn't there at all either before. So we've got those 4 things that you'll notice in the preferences, and then also we've got these feature changes in 2013. So excuse me, some pretty significant changes in the bank rec. And those top 4 are the ones that we looked at last month in detail, and then these are the ones that we're going to look at this month. And then just a teaser for next month, it's January 16th, same time, same day, and we're going to go through 1099s. So I just wanted to highlight the most important things that you'll notice in the new 2013 from the last month, that the bank reconciliation looks a lot different than it did before, and that we now have the undo last reconciliation, but we don't want to use it on a file that has been round-tripped. I wonder if this would be a good time to pause for a minute and see if anybody's discovered anything new in the round tripping, or had any new experiences with the bank reconciliation working or not working in using this.
So I will chime in. I've noticed in the last couple times I've tried to round trip in 13 that I'm coming across a lot more file corruption, and I don't know whether I'm having a string of bad luck or it's just happening in 13 more. So just a word to the wise, don't skip those rebuilding steps and resorting and making sure by looking, doing a second verify that that file is really clean before you try to round trip it.
Right, and you've got a good blog post on cleaning up data files. We both have some blog posts on that, but you have a pretty good one that talks about rebuilding and checking the file fragments, right?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, you have something on everything. Well, while you have a minute, this might be a great time to put the link to your blog post up there, because I get to that, at least a couple times a week. I'm up there checking something or another. Last night it was looking at the feature comparison page and looking at estimates and purchase orders. So it's always very helpful, Victoria. So give us a link, and anybody seeing the recording later then can pop up there to your blog. And I'm just walking into, this is 2012 here, so if you go into reconcile, this is the way things used to look, right? And if you look at it in 2013 now, and that's what we were seeing on the screen. We've got, you've got this window that pops up. Check the file fragments, which you do by hitting Command 1 in QuickBooks, and that way, when you do your conversion to this new version of QuickBooks, you're going to have it be not so painful as it could be. So always do that. I want to call it, due diligence, and also, of course, printing the trial balance on cash as accrual. So those were the important things from last month, and this month we're looking at merchant services. I've copied some important pieces from the user's guide here about setting up the first piece being that you set up each computer for merchant services because it's going to store the merchant services in the keychain. And then it also, with this is just a 2013 new feature, so it's something to note that this is in 2013. We now get it working the same, and notice the menu being exactly the same in Mac and Windows, and it makes us wonder, is it more and more that the two pieces of software are going to work the same? That's what we hope. So here you can see it's a relatively new feature, and now getting to it, navigating it to it for us professionals is the same regardless of the platform. So with the merchant services, this is what your customer is going to see. So you're going to send them a link, and they are going to log on line with the payment network. I'm sorry, I'm saying merchant services, and I mean payment network. And they're going to log online, and they're going to get this invoice. So I want to show you how that looks from QuickBooks. First, here we are looking at the QuickBooks 2012, and if I'm adding a new customer, there's additional info, job info, and notes, right? Now if I go over to the 2013 into the customer center, and I look at a customer, whoops, I'm in the wrong one here. And I'm in the wrong data file, excuse me, just a second. And I guess it's probably a good reminder that the very beginning of the process here is getting the Intuit payment network actually connected. So you can see my automatic backup working here, which I love. So I'm in the right data file now, and I know it because as soon as I open it up, it says, is it okay to allow merchant services to connect? And so I have to choose allow. And so as I'm doing this testing back and forth, forgive me for having the wrong file open there, I have to keep saying yes to that message as it comes through. So now, with this file activated for merchant services, what I wanted to show you is that when you look at a customer, you'll see there's the payment info tab. So a file that's not activated for merchant services, we're not going to see that payment info tab there. The activation is really simple. That's one of the new preferences in the payment network. You pretty much just hit the sign up. You're going to be getting an email which will give you a PIN number. And the decision here that you have to make is whether or not the default is going to be to have that link for your customers to use the IPN to pay on all of your invoices. So this is the default setting for your invoices, and if you have some customers who are just really going to be annoyed about that, you might decide that you're not going to set this as a default. It's entirely up to you, or you might use a different template for your customers who do use the network, and it'll have the link printed on theirs, but not on the others if you send it over PDF. So those are the options there. So you'll see the preferences set up with the Intuit Payment Network, and then the other piece of the is, of course, getting the invoice set up with the IPN on it. Any questions, or anybody have any problems setting up the IPN? Okay. The payment method itself. So this file again is activated with the Intuit Payment Network. So in the customer and vendor profiles, in the payment methods now there's going to be a payment method for the Intuit Payment Solutions. So in that other file that wasn't activated, there would be no Intuit Payment Solutions payment method. And then each of the individual credit cards can have the merchant services enabled or not enabled. But you'll notice if you try to edit this Intuit Payment Solutions, it says no. You really can't go in and edit it. So that's really something that's added in the process of enabling the Intuit Payment Network for this file. And then as far as what it looks like as you're using it, it's really super easy. I'll create an invoice here using my test customer. And down here is the icon that will enable or disable the online payment for this particular invoice, and the default is set again in the preferences. So my default was set to always have the online payment or the Intuit Payment Network activated. That's the way it's going to pop up, and then I could un or deselect it for a specific customer. Any questions about that? So then you're going to send this probably via email to your customer, and I'll just show you one here. I set up a test item for $1.99, and there's the payment network link. So this will preview on the invoice. Oop. There, that one has it on there. So this is one of the this is the template that has the link on it, and this is the template that does not have the link on it. So that'll pop up there. Then your customer is going to see that. They're going to click on it. I'll take you over to the window so you see what they're going to see. It looks like there's a little bit of a lag. There we go. Okay. So they click on the link, takes you to this browser. It says pay the invoice. They don't really need an account. They have different payment options. You're going to pay 50 cents to receive this this payment, and then afterwards they're going to get an email that says you made a payment, here's the amount, here's what you used for it. And I think what's important to note here is just that the payment network that's what's going to print on their credit card statement. So it's too bad it's not going to say your name. It's going to say IPN Payment Network, which I know would just draw red flags all over the place for me. Now on your end of things, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you should be able to change that in your IPN account settings, what it says.
Really?
Yeah. So I haven't played the, if you go into your IPN account, and my IPN account is the same for Windows and Mac, unlike merchant accounts where you have to have two separate ones. Yeah, it's in the settings. I think there's something about branding, and so when your landing page, you can show them your logo, etc. when they log into IPN, and then also you can tell them what you want it to say when the payment shows up.
Oh, like thank you so much for your business or something like that?
More like so it shows on their credit card statement who it's from.
Oh, that is great. That's the beauty of working together, Victoria. Thank you. I didn't know that was there.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I'm not hallucinating on that.
Sounds familiar, actually. Branding sounds familiar.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
It pays to, when you're setting up your IPN account, just go through all the options on the left-hand side, and you'll find lots of cool stuff.
Okay, good. Because we all agree that this is no good. We don't want it looking like this. So from within QuickBooks, then you're going to go to, let's see, that was the screenshot, but let me show you what it looks like from QuickBooks. You're going to go to Intuit Payment Network and download payments, and then it's going to have you go online, and it's going to take you over here to where you can see your payments, and you'll have a choice of whether or not you want to receive the payments and record them directly into your bank account, or if you want to do uh, if you just want to receive the payments and then do the undeposited funds. And what Intuit recommends from the user's guide is that you choose the first option, and that is because it will do the IPN fee split for you at that time. What do you think, Victoria?
Yeah, I really like that, and in fact, that's not an option in Windows to have them do the fee split and everything else. Now, as far as this fee split is, currently, and it has been this way for the last 6 months, and I don't know how long they're planning to continue it, but pro advisors don't pay a fee. So there's absolutely no reason if you're a pro advisor not to use this. And for your clients, the fee is 50 cents. So as if you're just doing the bank account, the checking debits, merchant, if it's merchant card, if they're using a Visa or a MasterCard, then of course the normal merchant fees apply. But if you can get them to choose, and you can turn it off so that they can't use credit cards, so they only have the choice to do a bank debit, and then the whole thing's free. So especially if you're sending out small invoices, it's really nice to not have them take those big merchant fees out.
That sounds like really good advice. I think everybody would agree with being able to get your money without having to pay a fee for it. Is there anything special or specific that you recommend for the setup as far as turning off the credit card processing for anything else?
Yeah, that's one of the options you set up when you're in your account on IPN, when you're signed into your IPN account.
Okay.
So,
and I remember seeing that.
Yeah. So.
And is that related to the what you see in the credit cards here too?
No.
Okay.
No. So that's just kind of a separate thing.
All right.
That won't, if you turn it off in your IPN account, it won't turn it off in your QuickBooks account.
So you save so much time when you get to integrate things, and I think from a customer's perspective and from the perspective of training, this is just beautiful to have it match up and to have you be able to do the download. So this is a really good new feature, and I need a lot more experience with it, and I need to go through my IPN account and set it all up. Now let's take a look at the import multiple lists. Also new, and I've copied the instructions here from the user's guide, and we posted the link to this at the start of this webinar so that you could use this later. I know you can't really see it very well from here. With the import multiple, I need to switch data files here. And there we go. It's always dicey to do live presentations. Very dicey. And that's why I have screenshots of the payment network, because you just never know what's really going to happen when you try to go online and do things live. So one thing that I did do with the import multiples, I know a lot of folks, Mac users, don't necessarily have Excel. A lot of people are really getting into the Google Docs. So I exported a list and put it into my Google Docs so that I could use it in Google Docs without actually having to have Excel, because I know that's the way it's going to be when I get over to a client's office. I might get it in some funky file, and then I'll be on a computer that doesn't have Excel on it, and Uh, you just never know. So you want to be able to drive, power through. So you don't actually have to have Excel. And then you can access this from a couple of different places. You might have the Customer Center open, like I do here. And then you might go down here and choose to import customers this way. And then you'll copy and paste the information in here. And the other way that you might decide to approach it is to come from File and choose Import, and then do Contacts from here. So the difference here is, I don't know if there is any real difference, but you get the roles. The roles are flexible here. So if you had a spreadsheet that had customers and vendors all mixed together, then you would do it this way. Whereas if you do it from the Customer Center, I believe everybody's going to be deselected for customers, but yeah, you can still change their role. So it's pretty much the same thing from both directions. And then from here, it's just it's a simple copy and paste. And again, I didn't even really have Excel to work with. So I've got a Customer Center here that just doesn't have anything in it at all. And then I'm going over, this is my first name column, so I'm just going to grab these first names and go down to the end of the B's, and I'm just doing a copy and then just pasting into the first name column, and it heads all the way down. Then I go over to the last name column. You've got to kind of do a double click there, grab my last names, and copy and paste. So same thing basically, that we can do in the Windows, but now we can do it in Mac. There's company name, all of your fields. You could deselect customers. You could change their type. I did do it where I put in people who were duplicates, and it did spit them back out, so that was good. So we'll go ahead and import these folks into this file again that didn't have any customers in it at all. And so now we've got 11 customers in there. Victoria, do you have something that you want to add at this point?
Nope, you're doing great.
Okay. Yeah, and we're doing, well, I'm trying to get it down to 30 minutes, so should probably just move into the next thing. It is so much fun, though, isn't it? So again, importing first names and then heading over to do last names. I'm going to let it do the technical word for this, I believe, is barfing, when you try to import and it says no way. And this is the kind of thing that that matters to me, is that we can't do it twice. It's gonna pop up and say no way, and I think that shows some integrity in the software itself. So it says no, it's not going to do this. So I could fix the errors. I could change the customers to a different type or something. The one thing that is kind of a bummer is once you get people in here, then they're sort of stuck in here. Their names are sort of stuck in here, so you have to delete them individually to get their names out. So you highlight, and then you have to actually come down and delete the lines individually to get them out of there. So that's kind of the bummer. And with any kind of an import, you always back up before you do it. Back up really good before you do any kind of importing. And then lastly, we're looking at batch invoicing. This is pretty cool. We got to make customer groups first, and then after making the customer groups, we can send out an invoice to all of those customers. So we would make a new invoice and then send it to that entire group. And I think the question that we have from the consultant's perspective is, when would we be doing this versus creating a memorized transaction. So I think that's the, the something to think about when you're doing it. A batch invoice, really, it's not the same as a memorized transaction because you still have to actually create the invoice. Whereas with a memorized transaction, you make the invoice once and then it says, hey, is it okay to do this? It's time to do it. And you just hit a button and it happens. So with batch invoice, you make a new invoice every time you're ready to send it out, whereas the memorized transactions, you hit a button and they go out. Very helpful, though, and there's plenty of applications, lots of applications for batch invoicing. So you create a customer group, and then after the customer group is created, then you can send the whole group an invoice. So I need to switch data files here again. Love the backup. That's one of the new settings, the automatic backup. Okay, I got a lot of things open here. Oops. I just closed my whole company file. Okay, still got a lot of stuff open. Okay, so looking at my customers here, my test customers. Oh, I think this isn't the same file that I want to be doing this with. Sorry, that's it. Okay, I don't need that backup. This one's got the keychain enabled. Okay, so looking at the Customer Center, I have no groups. If I had a group already created, it would be right here. So there are no groups in this Customer Center yet, and so I'm going to create one. I can go down here and create a new group. I might select a whole group of folks to create a group out of. I can hold down the Shift key and then head on up and select any number of them at a time. You might rearrange your list prior to doing this to make the selection easy. And then I can, with them highlighted, create a new group with the selection. So those are the two ways to go about doing it. You could just create a new group, which is going to be completely blank, or you create a new group with the selection. So hopefully doing with the selection, you'll be able to save yourself a little bit of time there. And then you can remove folks that don't fit. So if you weren't able to get a nice clean grab, you'd still be able to remove the folks that you need to. So I'm going to give this a name. Call it My Members. And then it's going to take just a minute, and it's going to pop up there, right? There we go. And it tells me that there's 62 members in the group. So again, I could open it up and take somebody out of there if I want to, so it doesn't have to be exactly perfect the very first time you do it. And now there's 61. So you can add new groups or create new groups with the selection, and then you create an invoice, and you choose your group. Notice it says group as opposed to customer. Important to note that the terms for each customer and the sales tax rates for each customer will be individualized on the invoice. So I'm creating one invoice that's going to go to everybody in this group. I've got the online payment enabled, and I've got print this invoice enabled. I'm going to unselect that. I've got email enabled. I like that. And I'll do the one with the logo and the IPN on it. So then I hit save. kind of a last chance to say, whoa, I'm not sure about that one or whatever. Another opportunity to change the to print or the to be emailed. And then once you hit create, um, they will all be created. And it takes just a minute to do this many of them. So it's probably maybe not a good idea, but I'll go ahead and do it. And we'll head over back to our presentation while it does that, and let Victoria sort of wrap it up, and then I'll take you back into that screen if there's any more questions we can answer about it.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions about the batch invoicing in particular? Has anybody had clients who've used it? Maybe you can raise your hand if you've got clients who use it. I think from what the questions I've gotten about it already, although it works the same way as the QuickBooks for Mac one, I mean, with QuickBooks for Windows one used to, it doesn't include the latest QuickBooks for Windows feature, which is the ability to invoice a batch with time and expenses, which I don't think is available in all editions of QuickBooks for Windows either, but that is a really cool feature, and you can't do that from the Mac version. It's basically, it's designed for something like Shelley's demoed here, where you're invoicing a whole group of people the exact same item and amount. But in terms of, you know, if you're a service professional of some sort and you want to batch invoice all your clients and just assign all the time and expenses at the end of the month, you know, if you remember, I think we got that in QuickBooks 2012. So, you know, we won't get it for another year or so in the Mac version, if at all. It depends on, again, how big a priority it is for end users.
That's the big question. That is the big question, and how much it is a priority for Intuit too.
Well, and they try to, you know, they really do try to prioritize things based on what is important to the end users. But for, you know, it's like anything else. Every end user thinks the particular way they do their business should be the way everybody does it, and so the feature that they need should be the one everybody needs, and that's not always the case. So it's the one that most people ask for. But, you know, that feedback up there, that's really important. That's voting for features. So if you have clients that say, why doesn't QuickBooks do this, please encourage them to use the feedback feature.
Yeah.
And then, you know, for those of us who are more used to Windows, remember it's up here under the QuickBooks menu, not the Help menu, the way it is in the Windows version.
And we got so many improvements in this year. I'm really impressed by the number of new features. I don't remember a QuickBooks for Windows ever coming out with this many substantive features in one new year.
Well, I think the encouraging thing is that they're not abandoning the Mac platform anytime soon. So, you know, I sort of questioned whether they should be even putting resources into it, because frankly, the Windows or the online version is so close to the Mac version at this point, and that it does everything the Mac version does, but there is still a significant portion of people out there that want it on their desktop. They don't want online, and they don't want to pay a monthly fee. So I think Intuit's listening to that, and they're not abandoning the desktop platform, at least for Mac. So those of you who think maybe they're abandoning it for Windows, I would think Mac would be the first to go. So you can consider that one the canary in the coal mine. When they stop adding features to Mac, that's when we should get really worried about them abandoning desktop for PC. I don't know, there was, does anybody else have a question? There is, let's see, here's a more general one from Shannon. She says, out of curiosity, have you run into any statistics and increase of Mac users in the recent years? I've had a significant increase, 40% in the last 3 months. Yeah, so the statistics say that of the new PC, the people that go out and buy a new computer, 30% of them are buying Apple Macs. I think that's the correct figure. However, Mac users are still only 15% really of users in the US. So the new users are more likely to newly adopt a Mac. And so that's kind of, Shannon, your increase of 40% in the last 3 months is probably close to what the statistics say. Unfortunately, Intuit is operating on statistics from 2 or 3 years ago. And they also operate on the statistics of how many Mac editions they sell versus PC editions, which I've argued with them is kind of a chicken and egg thing, because people are going to go out and get Parallels and install Windows when they have Macs, and that's going to count as a PC install, even though that's really a Mac person installing it, because the Mac is the Mac version isn't meeting their needs. So I think that's kind of a false statistic. So, but that's where they're basing their resource, or how they're allocating their resources, based on what they see sales, percentages, Mac versus PC, which they won't publish anywhere. But so I know it's much lower, and it's when you look at what the size of the teams are and the size of the resources they appear to be pouring in, which also are not published, but you can kind of get a sense figuring out how many people are working on it at any point in time, that those numbers are more like the 15 to 85%. So I think all of us has had more and more Mac clients, though. I mean, you've seen an increase, haven't you, Shelley? Especially, I think, on the, I'm in Silicon Valley, and obviously we're pretty Apple-centric. Shelley's in the middle of Seattle, in the middle of Microsoft territory, and even she's seen a lot of increase in Mac users, I think.
Oh, definitely. And the folks in our Meetup groups are picking up new Mac clients all the time. I think the big question is whether or not it's going to be Mac software or people using Mac hardware to get to the QuickBooks Online, because the question doesn't seem to be about the hardware. It's or the operating system. It's tough to compete with mobility, with ultimate mobility, which is what you get with the online applications. So I think you're right. It's going to be folks who don't want to pay the monthly fees for the online, or who have really been able to meld with what we have here that's available in the features in QuickBooks for Mac, and make it work for them. Like having, now that we have the batch invoicing, that's might be a really big deal for some folks. And when in 2010, when we came out multi-user, that was huge. So it's possible that Intuit will keep adding these pretty breakthrough functionalities, but at some point, theoretically, the whole world is going online, and so it makes you wonder. It must be tough to decide how to allocate the resources.
Yeah, it's not an enviable job.
No, and it's a task for us consultants too, because here we are learning, the new things about the Mac, and we only have so much time, and there's so much to learn, and yeah, it is especially with the new version, it's a lot more fun to work on, and you do get a lot of people who are they enjoy it, they like working on it. Speaking of enjoying, everybody enjoy your holidays.
Yeah. So anybody that wants to drop off can. There was one question that Shannon posted on the bank rec, and I didn't see it until we finished up. But if you guys want to stay around, we can address that. So Shannon's question says, I have a client who reconciled the previous month. However, when opened in a Mac, it showed over $6,000 negative. Oh, okay, opened in a PC. So, Shannon, I'm going to unmute you, and I don't know if you have a headset put in, but so I'm going to try this. And if you can't talk, then just type something in the chat panel. So I think her question is, hey Shannon, you there?
I'm here. Yep, I'm here now.
Great. Okay. So go ahead and expand a little bit. This is a file that your client was working in Mac. You opened it on the PC to work on it, and the bank reconciliations were off.
Right. It was over $6,000. Yeah, when you asked earlier, has anybody run into any issues, and that was my issue. She said, now obviously I hadn't looked at it on her Mac prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what her system looked, but she said she reconciled everything, balanced out fine. So when I took it over on my side, obviously it was way out of whack. So
well, so this is this is an issue that Intuit keeps telling me they have solved, and I haven't seen it solved. I mean, they must have seen it. They must have had this work in files. But my advice is to people is do not try to do bank recs across platforms because it just doesn't work. Now, that said, if you were to take that, and I don't know if you follow this through, but most of the time I've found that if I then I just ignore the beginning balance completely, put in the correct ending balance, start the bank rec, everything just sort of magically works for some reason. So you have to sort of.
That's exactly what happened. Yep.
Yeah.
So, and I've since bought a Mac too because of the increase I've been experiencing. I actually did. I bought a Mac, and I had 3 Macs in 1 week. And I'm like, I really need to get a Mac because I really don't like the round tripping, and I prefer to just do it on their computer. So it's saving me a lot more time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you won't run into this bank rec issue. But, by and large, the bank recs just don't translate. And I know they're working really hard, and they think they've fixed it. And they come out with a release that says, now it's really, really, really fixed, and it just isn't. But that's exactly my approach, is to ignore the beginning balance and just move forward. What happens is all those little, it's internally, it's retaining the fact that that transaction has been cleared. But for some reason, it just can't get the beginning balance correct. So I don't know. I haven't looked at this. This release just came out yesterday, the R5 release, and I don't know. Did it say that they'd fixed the bank rec issue? It is a pretty meaty release. There's a lot of bug fixes in it, but.
Well, the problem is that I always like to know before I install. So actually, okay, it looks like they fixed this link because this link was not working.
Really?
Earlier this morning.
Yeah, it worked for me. Isn't that funny? Well, you never know. On and off again.
Well, it was early this morning. So,
maybe it wasn't at work yet. Yeah, I don't see that fixed for, well, wait, where does it say reconcile? Oh, interest combo box will no longer appear when cost tracking is off. Oh, okay. That's interesting. QuickBooks for, oh, wow, that's huge, actually. Look at this. I hadn't read the whole thing. I just sort of glanced at it this morning. But QuickBooks for Mac will now support the conversion of company files for QuickBooks for Windows 2005. Whether that actually works or not, I have no idea. I don't have any 2005 files to test that with. But if you guys remember, that's when Intuit changed from 2005 to 2006. Intuit changed the whole database structure of their Windows QuickBooks file. And so a lot of times QuickBooks for Windows files won't even upgrade from 2005 to 2013 without stopping at 2006. Mm-hmm. So I'd be really careful about doing that personally.
I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it, but maybe it works. I'd put this in the box of, oh, sure, it's going to reconcile fine. I certainly would be be treating that file with kids' gloves if I did that. So
Definitely. But it's always good practice to upgrade in steps when you're going.
I think, well, especially 2005 to 2006, just because that database structure did change so radically. I actually, personally, I'm sorry they spent resources trying to make that work, because I don't think that's a good idea anyway. But anyway, that's why I'm not in charge of allocating resources, because I have screwy ideas about what they should do.
Well, yeah, because we have the trial versions or downloadable versions of the software. And as long as we could have access to each edition, then anybody could do the stepping up
Right.
without them putting all that into it. Yes. Well.
Okay. I think we're out of questions.
Oh. Yeah. I like this one. Inactive accounts will no longer appear when selecting.
Oh, that was huge. That was really, really irritating, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really working or not. But,
yeah, none of this stuff I've had time to test, which I like to do.
Well, it just came out. I didn't.
Yeah.
I haven't installed it. Speaking of, yes, I'm looking at it. I have not installed it. It came out yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as a general rule, I like to give it like a week before I install.
Well, especially on my active machine, I'll install it on another machine and test it before I put it on ones where I'm going to be using working files. And that's same thing with with Windows.
Well, that'll be something we'll have to check out next month.
Yeah.
See if it actually got fixed for us.
Right.
So speaking of next month, we're on for January 16th at noon. We'll be in 2013. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday and a peaceful walk into the new year.